Hi guys, Sarah here and welcome to Novel Expectations. Today I'm going to be doing for you the audiobook tag. So the audiobook tag was created by Books and Things, and I will leave a link to the original tag video in the down bar below. I was not tagged for this as far as I know, and I don't think a lot of people have done it yet, but I love audiobooks, and when I saw this tag come up in my feed, I watched it, of course, and then I have a little category on YouTube that's called To Do, and I kind of just added it to that list, and yeah, so I've been looking forward to doing this one, and I decided that now would be a good time. So like I said, I wasn't tagged in this, but I am going to do it anyway, so I totally hope that's okay. So let's jump right into it. There are 7 questions. So question number 1 is, have you always listened to audiobooks? And if not, when did you begin? No, I have not always listened to audiobooks. Back when I was younger, and I'm going to show my age, you could only get audiobooks from the library, and they were on tape back in the day, and then slowly to CD. But they would be these huge, like, things of tapes, and then it would be like, turn the tape over. So it was kind of a pain. Plus, I was a lot younger, and they didn't have a lot of books geared more towards kids in audiobook format. I do remember being young and being like in my early teens, maybe 12 or 13, and my mom and dad, they knew what a huge fan of the Babysitters Club I was, and they did release a couple books on tape for the Babysitters Club, and I would love to try and get my hands on them again. Maybe I'll have to check eBay and see what I can find, just for nostalgic value. That would be really fun to have. But I remember it was one of the super editions, the Babysitters Remember, I think, that I had on books on tape. And yeah, so that was a lot of fun. But it wasn't up until about 2 years ago or so that I actually started listening to audiobooks, which is a shame because when I first started working my first like adult job, I had to travel like 3 hours a day in the car. So that's when audiobooks would have been fantastic. But I listened to the radio, so c'est la vie. But yeah, it was a couple years ago. I don't remember why I stumbled upon them. I think it was, I must have gotten an email or seen something in a magazine about Audible, and I just thought, oh, well, there's probably not that. In my mind, there still wasn't that many audiobooks, but if you go on Audible, it is insane the amount of books that are on Audible. So yeah, I got a membership, and I haven't looked back since. Question number 2, what is your favorite audiobook? Oh, it's hard for me to list just one because I do have a couple, but I will list my very favorite and the one I will recommend to everybody. And if you guys have been watching my channel for more than 5 minutes, you know what I'm going to say. It's Outlander by Diana Gabaldon, as narrated by Davina Porter. Fantastic. I read Outlander years ago, like 5 or 6 years ago, I think, in paperback. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And then when I got, I think I had canceled my Audible membership because of financial reasons for a little while. And then I reinstated it. And when I got my first my first credit back, the first thing I actually bought, I thought, oh, because I know people were talking about Outlander at the time, again, because the TV show was coming. And I thought, you know, it's been so long since I've read it, and I've read so much in between. Maybe I'll grab it and see. And, I mean, when I read Outlander in print book format, I gave it 5 out of 5. When I listened to it in audio, I wanted to give it 10 out of 5. I mean, the narration is just fantastic. For nothing else, just to listen to her talk is brilliant. She is British, so she, of course, does a lovely British accent, and she also does a fantastic Scottish accent. And she speaks very well for the men as well, which I find sometimes is a problem. If you have a female narrating and it's a male speaking, it can sometimes sound kind of funny, and vice versa. But in this case, it worked so well. She does such a good job to voicing Jamie and all the other characters, and yeah, I mean, hands down, if you had to ask me, you know, like, what's your favorite audiobook, it would definitely be that one. Question number 3, what is your least favorite audiobook? There was one I listened to last year, and I cannot for the life of me remember what it is now. I think it was called Nantucket Sisters by Nancy Thane. I'm going to put a picture of it up here of what the actual one was. The story wasn't that great, so I mean, that had a lot to do with it. It wasn't the fact that it was an audiobook that I didn't like about it, it was just the story itself that I didn't care for, and I didn't care for the narration at all. It was not that great. I think a book like that needs to be read instead of narrated. Maybe that's just my opinion. But again, I really do think that the narration makes all the difference in the world between liking it and not liking a book. You know, if I had listened to Outlander and the narration was horrible, it would have probably taken my rating down a few pegs. And that does make a difference. And now when I rate audiobooks, I really, really try to separate the story from the narration because they are two different things. If I had read this as a book, what rating would I have given it? Does that make sense? I know I'm probably all rambly, so I do apologize. Question number 4. What do you think is the difference in experience between reading a physical book and listening to an audiobook? Well, for one, when you read the audiobook, you don't necessarily have a physical copy of the pretty book, and I like pretty books. So that does kind of take away from it a little bit. But really, other than that, I don't see that much of a difference. When I decided to do this tag this week, I've had this other video idea playing around in my head for the last few weeks. And I'm going to be posting it on Friday, so stay tuned for that. And it is about audiobooks, and it's a discussion about audiobooks. But anyway, I don't see any difference between listening to an audiobook to reading a book. And I don't want to get too much into my thoughts on that right here because, like I said, there is a discussion video I want to do later this week. So be on the lookout for that if you're interested. But other than having like the physical copy of the book, I don't see any difference, and I think in some cases it even highlights or makes the experience that much better. Question number 5. How and when do you find you listen to audiobooks? I listen to them to and from my ride to work, which isn't very long. It's only about a half an hour. So I get about an hour in a day. And I try on the weekends to get a couple hours in here and there. If I'm just sitting around and doing nothing, or really anytime I'm in the car by myself, I try and plug in my audiobook. I find that harder to do when it's only a 5 or 10 minute drive because I think, well, by the time I plug it in and get it set up, I've only listened to 5 minutes of the book, and what's the point? But I am trying to be more conscious of doing that because those 5 or 10 minute intervals will add up and will allow me to finish the audiobooks a lot faster than I have been. And question number 6, what style genre do you prefer on audiobook? I will listen to anything on audiobook. Contemporary romance I've listened to, Outlander, which is considered like a sci-fi historical. I listened to Chesapeake by James Michener on audio, which was fantastic. That's the way to read Michener is via audiobook because you can just plug it in and let it go. Much like my personal reading taste, I don't specify my audiobooks by genre. I just listen to whatever catches my fancy. That's just the way I like it. Is there any that I prefer? I kind of really like the epic books. I mean, if you're going to be spending $14, like your $14.95 credit on Audible, I don't want to get a book that might only be 10 hours long. I want to get a book that's going to be like 20 to 40 hours long because I want some bang for my buck. Gosh darn it. And I think when you have a big book like Outlander or Chesapeake by Michener or Gone with the Wind, I can read pretty quickly. But those books tend to be a lot more dense than your typical little lighter or fluffier contemporary romance, and I tend not to get through them as quickly. Whereas an audiobook, I can. So it allows me to read more in a shorter period of time, if that makes sense. I'm sorry guys, now that I'm thinking about this, this video has probably been all over the place and I do totally apologize. Question number 9, give some recommendations for audiobooks. Outlander, 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 read Outlander on audiobook. Gone with the Wind, I read earlier this year on audio and it was fantastic. Oh, the Fool's Gold series by Susan Mallory I've been listening to on audiobook, and the narration is fantastic for that one, along with the the Lakeshore Chronicle series by Susan Wiggs. That's another great contemporary romance recommendation. I've listened to the first 2 books of that one, also on Audible. I'm trying to think. The X-Files, which I read recently, Trust No One, which is the anthology, that was really, really good. Yeah, those are just some recommendations. If you guys have any questions or anything like that, and you're wondering, you know, why I like these, or could I recommend anything else, please post in the comments below. I'm not tagging anybody for this video because I don't know who's done it, and the other problem is that I'm not exactly sure how many people listen to audiobooks on a regular basis and could do this tag. So the people that I am going to tag are those who think, if you think that listening to an audiobook is considered reading a book, then please do this tag if you want to. And if you do this tag, please post in the comments below with your video, because I would definitely love to go watch it, because I'm always looking for more audiobook recommendations. And anyway, guys, again, I apologize for the rambling, and until my next video, take care and happy reading and listening. Bye.